So normally I am out here waxing poetic about the cars that I love on this Classics channel, but today I'm going to do a little something different and tell you the cars that I would never buy again. All three I have owned, and all three I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, starting with this case.
Yeah, this is top of our list, and Brendan's about to pop the hood so we can show you why this makes number one for our do not buy list. It's because of this Cadillac North Star engine. This is, well, this is an infamous engine. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, you know, Case, ooh. I have owned over 100 vehicles now, and there are, ooh, sorry, that hood almost closed there. I have owned over 100 vehicles, and there are only 3 I've ever lost money on. 2 of those 3 are North Star
powered.
Are North Star engine Cadillacs. And that is why these are considered the C word in my book, where I would never want to touch one again, because these engines are just so notoriously unreliable that it just makes it so, like, when something goes bad with these engines, which typically it's the head gasket, it pretty much mechanically totals the entire car, because the cost to replace the head gasket is so immense that it would literally cost less to just replace the entire engine.
Yeah, and not a great sign here in the back seat. We've got a jug of coolant, so doesn't bode well for how this particular North Star is operating. And yeah, we've just seen tons of these North Stars in the junkyard. We know that they've had a lot of issues because it's been widely reported. And sure, I mean, I think around 2004, they changed up the head bolts a little bit and they got better. But as a general rule of thumb, if you see North Star under the hood of any Cadillac,
run
But
away. We're gonna go drive it.
Well, the other thing about this is it's front-wheel drive, too.
Yeah.
Which makes it even less exciting.
Exactly.
The North Star badge on the back even has a skull and crossbones. It's like they knew.
It's like an omen to what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
Boy.
All kinds of trash in this one.
Yeah, this one is not great. And the dash seems to be melting as well.
Yeah, look at the texture of it. It's like the surface of the moon.
Oh, and of course, this one has a check engine light. It did show up, yep, check oil level, which is also a pretty bad sign on these North Star engines.
Yeah.
And what
Fuel
I'm seeing,
low, service engine soon.
So if you find one of these and it's got like 30, 40, 50,000 miles on it, you could maybe buy it and enjoy it for a little bit. But generally speaking, when these cars hit 90 to 100,000 miles, you are literally driving around a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you do a little bit of research on these cars, they have an unbelievable reputation for being unreliable. That's not to say that there aren't some of those exceptions that prove the rule. I'm sure there are people out there who have had North Star powered Cadillacs and have done okay for themselves. But in general, man, it is just not a car that you want to roll the dice on.
You know, interesting story. I sold one of these that I did sell. I had someone call me up a month after I sold it to them, literally screaming at me and yelling at me because they were claiming that I sold them a car that had a blown head gasket and that I knew about it and tried to hide it. I didn't know about it. I don't know what happened in that month, but yeah.
Can't say it's surprising.
It was a bad experience, but let's see if this thing has any balls here on the test track and how it runs. Yeah, and that's the other thing. It
does okay.
Well, yeah, they're not fast.
For what this car is?
Sure, I guess. It's a big car. It's front-wheel drive, and man, it just, for the same amount of money you would spend on buying something like this, just get a town car.
Yeah, which is also rear-wheel drive. Now, if you live here in a place like Colorado where you get snow, maybe having something front-wheel drive in your luxury car makes it a more usable vehicle, and that's fair. But as far as a luxury experience goes, the other thing with a Panther platform luxury car like the town car is that it is rear-wheel drive, which makes it just a little bit more interesting to drive, even if you're not going to take it to a track or do big smoky burnouts all the time. It still just adds something to that experience.
Well, let's show something else also from GM that I wouldn't recommend.
Next up, we have this GMC Yukon, which is interesting because typically, you and I both are huge fans of the Yukon.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you're getting a GMT 800, which is 06 to, gosh, what is that, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Those you should buy all day. Every version of them, they're fantastic. These, on the other hand, they decided to go a little more high-tech, which in General Motors fashion, when they go high-tech with their engines, like the North Star, they tend to flop right on their face.
Yeah, so this is the first year of the active fuel management, cylinder deactivation technology that is pretty well known for having pulled away a lot from the robustness that earlier GMC Yukons were known for.
Yeah, those early LS engines are fantastic machines that can go hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles without major rebuilds. But these active fuel management ones with the cylinder deactivation are just super problematic. Yeah. Now, the nice thing is with these GMT 900s, there's two different engine options as far as the GMC Yukons go. You have the 5.3 LS, which has the active fuel management, like this guy. Or if you get the Denali, you get the 6.2 liter V8. And did you know, Case, they didn't put the active fuel management on that version of the 6.2 V8. So if you were to get one of these, the Denali is the one to get for sure. But in base trim, you're stuck with this turd.
You know what's funny too is it looks like somebody detailed this engine bay, which that in itself is not necessarily weird. It's just given how the interior and the exterior of this Yukon look, it's a little strange that you would go for detailing the engine bay, because here, let's bring this hood closed. Well, I gotta say, this is just a point of personal preference. This body style of the GMC Yukon is my personal least favorite. They made it very round and bubbly, and even versus GMT 800, this front end just doesn't have that macho look that I expect from a V8 SUV.
Yeah, it really has not aged well. I think I would agree with you there, but let's take it out for a spin and see how it drives.
Oh, this is
you
kinda
know,
gross.
speaking of fluids, this one's got a big old container that's empty of engine oil.
Yeah.
It's got some sort of gangster lean going on this seat.
Yeah, you're all the way back. Man, some of these older GM interiors can age okay. This is not one of those, and we're a little under 200,000 miles on this unit. Yeah, it's ugly in here, man. It does not look good.
Well, and every single one of these that I've ridden in, these HVAC buttons always wear off. So much so, in fact, if you look on eBay, you can find stickers that you can put on there that emulate the HVAC buttons, because it's just, they all wear off.
Somebody had to come up with a solution for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, that this vehicle, one of its major Achilles heels is the engine, because typically a GM vehicle like this, these engines is the best part of it, by far.
Exactly. I mean, this was kind of the beginning of the downfall of reliability, in my opinion, of General Motors. So General Motors had such a good thing going with their LS engines, and they were just so renowned for being one of the more reliable American V8s ever made. And then with this, they just started to mess with it, and they ruined it. It's so disappointing, because the previous generation of these is fantastic, such a great vehicle to own. So it's a big bummer to me personally, because I'm a fan of them, that these just are not a good vehicle to own.
Tell you what is still good about this one, though, is the ride. And maybe it's just because this has done quite a few miles and it's got nicely worn in springs, but it floats along. It's pretty comfortable.
That's true. How does it perform, though?
Yeah, let's find out. Full throttle. It's okay.
Yeah, it's not bad, actually.
No, it's pretty spry. It's just that the biggest thing with this engine, power was not the issue, it was reliability.
Exactly. Yeah, and for that reason, it makes number 2 on our list. But I think I'm kind of tired of bashing on GM, Case. So for number 3, let's go with another American manufacturer and bash on it a little.
Now, Brendan, this is interesting because this is a Ford Focus. I haven't heard of this being horribly unreliable. Why'd you pick this for our list?
Yeah,
for number
these
3?
Aren't super unreliable. They always run, I'm trying to find a word that's not going to cuss. They run like garbage.
Yeah.
They run like garbage. And I think the most clear way to tell is, look at that little hood cowl there. You can see it vibrating. We have this car running currently, and I think they came from the factory like this, Case, because every single time that I've gotten into one of these first generation Ford Focuses, they all run like a Harley.
Yeah, the whole car. Here, pop your hands off the hood so you can see, just how much this whole car vibrates. And actually, I did get behind the wheel with you, as we will on camera. It gets even worse when you drive it. So you're looking at a car that is tinny in general, but it's got absolutely the most unrefined idle and driving that I think I've ever felt in a car.
Yeah, and I get, this is a cheap car, right? This is just meant to be an economy, basic transportation car. And I get that. And for many of you out there, you may have had these for a while and they've been just fine. You just deal with your numb hands when you get to wherever you're going. But there are just so many other cars that you can get that'll be far more reliable. I mean, if you just want a cheap basic transportation, just go get a Corolla or, you know, a little Honda Civic or something. Just why deal with the vibrating engine of the Ford Focus? And what's interesting is the second generation Focus, the engines run a little bit smoother, but they forgot how to build reliable transmissions with those. So those are also terrible. Yeah, I can't recommend these. I mean, they made a cool version, the SVT. The SVT is kind of interesting, pretty cool. But I haven't driven one of those, but I would assume that the engine vibrates like this one does.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get behind the wheel and show just how bad it is.
All right. All right, Case. I'm going to let you drive this because I've driven plenty of these here at the auction, and I want you to experience the vibrating steering wheel that gets worse with the more throttle you give it.
Oh my God. What's crazy about it is as you're on the throttle, half of the noise you hear is from the motor itself. It sounds like there's more holes than metal making up this exhaust. But the other half of the noise is just every bit of trim and interior rattling as this engine shakes you violently. I've genuinely never felt something as unrefined as this.
Yeah, now I look at a lot of cars for my brother-in-law's dealership every week here at the auction, and he regularly buys these because they're really, really cheap. They can go for a decent amount of time, but every time I do, I put a little note in there, runs like a Ford Focus, because it just has like a certain way that these all kind of run and vibrate and shimmy. And I guess some people are just willing to deal with it, but me personally, I could not drive this for any long period of time, just vibrating like that.
Yeah, at a certain RPM, this mirror vibrates the same way that the side mirror on the 1948 Willys I learned how to drive on vibrates, which is not a good thing, by the way. This is almost unbelievable. And now we're to the test track where we get to give this some throttle. I'm sure it's not really gonna impress us here either.
No. It just vibrates a bit more.
Yeah, a lot of noise, not a lot of acceleration. We also have a check engine light on here. It sounds like there's some bushings that are blown out in the front end. So this, to be fair, is not the best example of one of these Ford Focuses.
But this is common of what you see with these Ford Focuses. I mean, these were cheap, basic transportation, and so they were owned by the kind of people that, no offense to you that do own these, I'm sure there's some good ones out there, but there are a lot of people that just cannot afford the maintenance on any car. And so these just all have a lot of deferred maintenance and are just gonna be a major headache for you.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find one of these in good condition. And sure, I mean, the vibrating that we're feeling from the engine in this one and all of the other ones that you've driven might be indicative of a problem that's fixable, but it does seem to be a very common issue with them, and me personally, it would drive me batty having to live with that. I couldn't do it.
Now, Case, I know that this video is going to create a slurry of comments down below of people that have had one of these three vehicles and have had great experience with it.
Yeah.
But you should know that experience is anecdotal.
Yeah, it's 100% possible to have any one of these three cars and have a fine experience with them. And a lot of times when there's issues like these on cars, there are solutions to those problems. But like if you're looking for an inexpensive vehicle like all of these are, there's just typically going to be better options for you out there. So these are some cars that you especially have had experience with and know that there are these common issues, good reasons why you might want to stay away from them.
Yeah, I have owned all three of these vehicles personally myself, and so I am speaking from experience. And not only that, I have looked at thousands and thousands of vehicles here at the auction, and these are just some of the vehicles that I see common problems with. And whenever I see them on my list of cars cars to look at here, I kind of hang my head and go, oh, not that one. So these are the top 3 cars that I would avoid at all costs if it was my money.
Now, this video is all possible thanks to Dealers Auto Auction of the Rockies right here in Colorado, where we get to check out some of these older vehicles and make videos on them, and let us know what you all think down in the comments below. If you want to see even more videos from here and from all over where we do our filming, check out alltfl.com.
Thanks. Take care, guys.